I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were splashed in neon across my entire being. The moment when, amid hushed whispers and polite clinks of wine glasses at a celebratory dinner, my wife boldly declared that I must quit my job for her. In those first 100 heartbeats, every cherished dream of professional success and financial independence I had fought so hard to build shattered into a cascade of disbelief and hurt. Her words, delivered with an air of entitlement, cut deep, yet in that searing moment, I resolved to stand my ground. I would not sacrifice my ambitions for her idealized life, especially when fate had something entirely unexpected in store. 4 years, I had dedicated myself to my career, believing that the long hours, the constant hustle, and the sacrifices I made were the foundation of a secure future for both of us. I pictured a life where we could enjoy the fruits of our labor, a comfortable home, the freedom to travel, and the stability that comes from a fulfilling profession. I poured every ounce of energy into climbing the corporate ladder, attending late-night meetings, and polishing my skills in the competitive environment of my field. Meanwhile, my wife's vision of a better life increasingly revolved around the notion that my professional pursuits were a barrier to her own dreams. She wanted me to quit, to leave behind the world of boardrooms and deadlines, so that she could bask in a lifestyle that, in her mind, was more glamorous and free. At first, I believed her request might be a passing whim, a momentary desire to escape the stresses of daily life. I tried to reason with her, assuring her that my job wasn't just about personal ambition, but about providing for our future together. But as weeks turned into months, her insistence grew louder and more insistent. She argued that my job was keeping me trapped in an endless cycle of stress, that it was robbing us of the quality of life we both deserved. She painted vivid pictures of a carefree existence, free from the shackles of corporate responsibility, and urged me to take the leap into a life of leisure. Her tone, both alluring and commanding, made it seem as if quitting my job would be the ultimate sacrifice, a sacrifice that she believed would finally set us free. I found myself at a crossroads. I had worked tirelessly for years, and every achievement, every promotion, every accolade had been a testament to my commitment. My job had become not only a career but a part of my identity, a source of pride that defined who I was. The thought of abandoning it for a lifestyle that seemed, at best, uncertain, filled me with a quiet terror. I began to wonder if perhaps she valued my contributions not for what they were, but for how they served her image. It was a bitter realization that the very ambitions I had nurtured to secure our future were now being seen as obstacles to her own dreams. That fateful evening at the dinner party was a turning point, a moment when the veneer of our shared life cracked and revealed a reality I could no longer ignore. I listened, heart pounding, as she extolled the virtues of a life without the pressures of work. Her words were laced with a mix of entitlement and a desperate need for freedom, as if she were begging for a chance to rewrite our destiny without me. As her colleagues exchanged knowing glances and murmurs of admiration for her bold vision, I felt a profound mix of betrayal and resolve. I realized then that I could no longer be the silent partner in a relationship where my aspirations were trampled upon. In the hours after the dinner, I wandered through our home as if in a daze, each room a stark reminder of the life we had once planned together. I sat in the study, surrounded by mementos of my hard-fought career, certificates, photos of business trips, and the countless notes from clients who had praised my work, and I began to question everything. How had we reached this point, where the dreams we had built with joint effort were now being dismantled by the person I loved most? The more I pondered, the clearer it became. I had to choose myself, to reclaim my identity and my future, regardless of the sacrifices required. That night, with a heavy heart and a mind swirling with thoughts of betrayal, I picked up an old leather-bound journal, a repository of my hopes, my ambitions, and my inner struggles. I began to write, pouring out every raw emotion, the sting of her words, the disbelief that such a proposal could come from the person who was once my confidant, and the quiet, resolute determination that began to emerge from the ashes of our shared dreams. Each word was a step toward understanding that my life, my career, and my future were mine to shape. I realized that if I were to live authentically, I had to stand by my own choices, even if it meant going against the wishes of someone who once meant everything to me. As the pages filled with my reflections, a new vision began to take shape, a vision of a future where I continued to thrive professionally, where my promotions and achievements were celebrated, and where my financial security was built on the strength of my own endeavors. I envisioned a life where I could invest in my passions, expand my horizons, and most importantly, maintain my integrity and self-respect. I resolved that I would not allow her desires to extinguish the flame of ambition that had burned in me for so long. Instead, I would use this moment as a catalyst to propel myself toward even greater success. A success that would be a living testament to my resilience and my unwavering belief in my own worth. That night, as I closed my journal and looked out the window at the silent, star-studded sky, I made a solemn promise to myself. I would never let anyone, not even the person I once loved, force me to abandon the dreams that defined me. I would hold fast to my convictions, nurture my career, and build a future that was as bright as it was secure, one that would leave no room for regret or resentment. The pain of her betrayal would not be the end of my story, it would be the spark that ignited my transformation, the fuel that would drive me to new heights. And so, with a deep, determined breath, I stepped away from that painful chapter, ready to embrace the dawn of a new era, a future where my success would be my own, undeniable and ever-growing. In the days following that unforgettable dinner, when her ultimatum had hung in the air like a curse, I found myself in a whirlwind of emotion and revelation. The raw sting of her demand that I quit my job for her, which I had once believed was an impossible sacrifice, had slowly transformed into a fierce drive not to be diminished. I spent long hours replaying that evening in my mind, each recollection a mix of bitter betrayal and a spark of determination. I realized that her insistence wasn't merely about me leaving work, it was her way of asserting control over our life, a control that I was no longer willing to accept. Even as I wrestled with shock and sorrow, a quiet, rebellious strength began to emerge. I vowed then that I would not let her dictate my future. If she wanted to be free from the responsibilities of a working partner, then I would prove that my hard work was worth far more than the sacrifice she demanded. The days that followed were filled with restless nights and countless introspective moments. I began each morning with a long, solitary run through the city streets, a ritual that cleared my head and reminded me that every step I took was my own. The cool air, the rhythmic pounding of my feet on the pavement, and the quiet hum of the early city became my daily meditation, a time when I could let my thoughts churn and find clarity amid the storm of emotions. During those runs, I confronted the painful memories of our shared past and slowly, the pain began to transmute into a raw determination. I started questioning the sacrifices I had made over the years, all the long hours, the missed family dinners, the dreams deferred in the name of our future. In that reflective solitude, I realized that I had built a career and a financial foundation that was uniquely mine, a foundation that should never be compromised for someone else's whims. Returning home from those runs, I found myself channeling that newfound resolve into every aspect of my life. My workspace, once a corner of the living room cluttered with reminders of our past, transformed into a command center for my future. I spent hours poring over business reports, strategizing with renewed vigor, and even brainstorming new ideas that I had long shelved. I made a conscious decision to invest even more of my energy and time into my job, the very job my wife had tried to force me to abandon. I knew that if I could show the world, and ultimately her, that my career was my calling, then I would not only secure my own future but also redefine the narrative that had once been imposed on me. At work, I started to see the fruits of my renewed dedication almost immediately. I began volunteering for challenging projects that stretched my abilities, tasks that I had previously been too cautious to take on. Late nights at the office, once a burden I begrudgingly accepted, now became opportunities for me to shine. I found myself leading presentations with a newfound confidence that startled even my longtime colleagues. One particular project, a major pitch to a client that had been critical for our division, became my proving ground. I spent weeks meticulously preparing, rehearsing every detail until I could recite our strategy in my sleep. The day of the presentation, I walked into the boardroom with a quiet resolve, every step echoing with determination. As I presented my ideas, I saw nods of approval and felt a wave of adrenaline that confirmed my worth. That project was a resounding success, and it wasn't long before word spread that I had not only met expectations but exceeded them dramatically. The news of my promotion soon followed, a recognition of my relentless work ethic and my unwillingness to compromise on my own aspirations. Each congratulatory email and every appreciative nod from senior management served as a potent counterpoint to the demands my wife had once made. While my professional life was experiencing this triumphant resurgence, my personal journey was equally tumultuous. The dinner, with its searing mix of humiliation and defiance, had forced me to reevaluate everything about my identity. I realized that I had spent too many years bending to meet someone else's ideal of what our life should be, sacrificing my own dreams along the way. In therapy sessions, I poured out the long-held frustrations and the deep-seated insecurities that had festered quietly. My therapist helped me see that the choice my wife had given me was not just about quitting a job, it was about relinquishing a part of myself. I began to understand that my career was not merely a means to a paycheck but a fundamental aspect of who I was, a source of pride and self-expression that I could no longer afford to sacrifice. Those sessions were cathartic. They allowed me to unearth buried aspirations and reclaim the spark of ambition that had dimmed under years of compromise. I also reconnected with friends who had known me before the weight of our shared life had buried my individuality. I met them for coffee and long walks, where we talked openly about our dreams, our disappointments, and the lessons we had learned from life's cruel twists. Their unwavering support was both a salve to my wounded pride and a reminder that my value was inherent, independent of anyone else's expectations. In these candid conversations, I began to see that my journey was not an isolated struggle, but a universal experience of growth and self-discovery. Each story shared by a friend who had also been let down by love served as an affirmation that even in the face of deep betrayal, one can emerge stronger and more determined than ever before. At the same time, I explored creative avenues to channel the complex cocktail of emotions surging within me. I returned to writing, pouring out my experiences into long, unfiltered journal entries and eventually a blog that resonated with others. I wrote about the crushing moment when I first heard her ultimatum, about the nights filled with anguish and sleepless despair, and about the slow, relentless march toward reclaiming my self-worth. My writing became both a form of therapy and a vehicle for inspiring others who had faced similar betrayals. The letters of support I received from strangers, people who saw their own struggles reflected in my words, provided a sense of community and a reminder that my pain could be transformed into a powerful catalyst for change. Every day I found myself becoming more resolute. I set clear, tangible goals, to excel in my job, to secure my financial independence, and to assert my identity in ways that were unmistakably my own. I began taking on additional responsibilities at work, even volunteering to lead projects that no one else wanted. I became a force in the boardroom, a confident, innovative leader whose ideas commanded attention. I invested in my professional development, attending workshops and seminars that not only sharpened my skills but also broadened my perspective on success. Each new challenge at work was met with a determination that was both exhilarating and unyielding. My promotion was not just a career milestone, it was a declaration that I had reclaimed my narrative, that I was no longer defined by someone else's shallow demands, but by my own relentless drive and ingenuity. Amid the bustle of professional reinvention, I continued to focus on rebuilding my personal life. I made a conscious effort to forge new relationships and nurture the ones that had always supported me. I reached out to old friends, attended intimate gatherings, and even joined a support group for those who had experienced betrayal in relationships. In these spaces, I found solace and understanding. People who listened without judgment, who shared their own stories of heartbreak and recovery, and who helped me see that my worth was not diminished by the choices of another. Their empathy and encouragement were like a lifeline, pulling me out of the darkness and reminding me that every end is simply the beginning of something new. Through it all, I maintained a rigorous routine that balanced the demands of my work with the need for personal healing. Mornings were reserved for exercise, long runs that cleared my head and allowed me to reflect on the journey ahead. Afternoons were a time of focused productivity, where I immersed myself in tasks that propelled my career forward. Evenings were dedicated to quiet introspection, journaling, reading inspirational literature, or simply sitting in silence, letting the lessons of the day seep into my soul. This disciplined routine became the backbone of my transformation, a steady rhythm that anchored me amidst the tumult of change. As the weeks turned into months, the cumulative impact of these efforts began to manifest in every facet of my life. My career was flourishing. Each project I led, each innovative idea I implemented, served as a testament to the fact that I had reclaimed my professional identity. My finances were stabilizing and growing, the careful investments I had made bolstering my confidence and securing my future. More importantly, my inner world was undergoing a profound transformation. The pain of betrayal, once a searing wound, was slowly healing, replaced by a deep, unshakable belief in my own worth. I realized that I had not only survived the storm but had emerged stronger, more resilient, and more determined to build a future defined solely by my own dreams and ambitions. In those quiet moments of reflection, I began to see a new horizon emerging, a future where my success was no longer measured by someone else's shallow standards, but by the unwavering drive within me. I envisioned expanding my professional endeavors even further, exploring creative projects that had long been on the back burner, and forging meaningful connections with people who shared my vision for a life built on authenticity and self-respect. Every new goal I set was a bold declaration that I was in control of my destiny, a promise to myself that I would never again let betrayal dictate the course of my life. By the time I looked back on those tumultuous months, I saw a tapestry woven from threads of pain, resilience, and unyielding determination. The journey was far from easy, marked by moments of heartache and doubt, yet each challenge had forged a new strength within me, a strength that was reflected in my rising career, my secure finances, and my burgeoning sense of self-worth. Every step forward, every small victory, was a quiet rebuke to the betrayal I had once endured, a testament that I had chosen to rise, rebuild, and reclaim my future on my own terms. That morning, as the first light of dawn crept through the windows of my office building, I felt the overwhelming weight of the past melt away into a steady, undeniable pride. The world outside was still, as if holding its breath in anticipation, and I sat quietly in my corner office, a place that only months ago had been a battlefield of conflicting emotions, and realized that my life had been irreversibly transformed. I had just been promoted, a clear, resounding affirmation of my dedication, competence, and the countless hours I had poured into my work. The irony wasn't lost on me. While my wife had relentlessly pursued her dream of a carefree life and ultimately ended up unemployed, I had stayed true to my own ambitions. In a twist of fate, her insistence that I quit my job had been the very catalyst that propelled me to soar higher than I ever imagined. I remember the day of the promotion meeting vividly. My boss called me into his office, his eyes sparkling with an energy that contrasted sharply with the somber mood I had carried since that fateful dinner. As he began to speak, praising my creativity, my unwavering commitment, and the innovative strategies that had not only sustained our business but had taken it to new heights, I felt a surge of validation. Every accolade was a counterpoint to the bitter demands my wife had once made, every word a testament to the fact that I had chosen the path of self-respect over sacrificing my dreams. In that moment, the harsh words she had once uttered, insisting I abandon my career, seemed distant, a reminder of a chapter that had closed for my benefit. The celebration of my promotion was quiet and intimate, a small gathering of colleagues who had witnessed my struggle and growth over the past months. Their congratulatory smiles and heartfelt remarks filled me with a deep sense of belonging and accomplishment. I listened as one coworker said, "You never gave up even when it felt like everyone expected you to. You proved that true strength lies in holding on to your dreams." Those words, simple and sincere, resonated within me. They reinforced the belief that every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt had led me to this moment of triumph. As the day unfolded, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. I recalled the painful anniversary dinner when my wife demanded I quit my job, painting my career as a barrier to her vision of a carefree life. I remembered the long nights spent in the solitude of my apartment, grappling with a cocktail of emotions, hurt, anger, and a growing determination to prove that my work was not a mere sacrifice but a source of identity and pride. I had stood firm against her demands, not out of stubbornness alone, but because I recognized that the career I had built was the foundation of my self-worth. In the quiet aftermath of that confrontation, I embarked on a personal revolution. I immersed myself in every aspect of my job, redefined my goals, and dared to invest even more deeply in my future. The transformation was not merely professional, it seeped into every fiber of my being. I began to nurture the part of me that had been overshadowed by the constant tension between our divergent dreams. I reconnected with old friends, those who had always admired my ambition and drive, and they reminded me that I was more than just a provider, I was a person with a vision, creativity, and the resilience to stand on my own. Their support was a lifeline, a gentle reminder that true fulfillment comes not from compromising who you are, but from embracing your authentic self. I even started dedicating time to hobbies I had long abandoned, like playing the guitar and sketching scenes from my favorite places. Each note I strummed and every line I drew became an act of reclamation, a subtle yet powerful assertion that my life was mine to shape. Yet, as the days turned into weeks, the echoes of my wife's words still occasionally surfaced, a fleeting reminder of a time when I was expected to sacrifice my dreams for someone else's ideal. In the quiet of the night, as I sat alone in my apartment, I would sometimes feel a twinge of regret or a flash of loneliness. But even then, I would remind myself of the hard-fought victories I had achieved, the recognition at work, and the profound sense of self that had emerged from those trials. I realized that every hardship had been a stepping stone, a necessary part of the journey to becoming the person I was now. I had learned that true empowerment comes not from conforming to someone else's expectations, but from daring to live a life defined by your own choices, even when that path is steep and uncertain. My newfound success began to create ripples that extended far beyond the confines of my office. Former colleagues and even some acquaintances from before my struggles started to view me with a mixture of admiration and envy. I was no longer the quiet man who had tolerated dismissive remarks about my work. I had become a leader, a visionary whose ideas were transforming the company's future. Invitations to speak at industry events and participate in high-level strategic meetings began to pour in. Each opportunity reinforced the belief that my hard work had paid off, that my refusal to compromise had carved a new path for myself. A path that was not only financially rewarding but also deeply fulfilling on a personal level. At the same time, life outside of work blossomed in unexpected ways. I started to form new friendships with individuals who shared my values, people who celebrated ambition, resilience, and the power of perseverance. These relationships, built on genuine respect and mutual support, became a cornerstone of my healing. We would meet over dinner, sharing stories of our own struggles and the triumphs that followed, and each conversation was a reminder that I was not alone in my journey. The support and camaraderie of these new friends filled a void that had once been marred by bitterness and regret, replacing it with hope and a deep sense of belonging. As I began to build this new life, I also made a conscious effort to reconnect with my own passions and interests, those parts of me that had been quietly neglected in the pursuit of professional success. I rediscovered the joy of reading inspirational books, the thrill of creative writing, and the solace of nature during long, reflective walks. I even rejoined a local sports club, finding that the physical challenge of a good game and the laughter shared with teammates were powerful antidotes to the isolation I had once felt. Each small step was a reaffirmation that my life was multifaceted and that true fulfillment could only be achieved when every aspect of my being was nurtured. I began to see the transformation not just in my external achievements, but in the very way I viewed myself. No longer did I measure my worth by the shallow judgments of others or by the sacrifices I had made in a failed relationship. Instead, I started to see my career, my passions, and my personal relationships as reflections of who I truly was, a person of substance, of resilience, and of boundless potential. I took pride in every challenge I overcame and every milestone I reached, understanding that my success was the culmination of years of unwavering commitment and hard-fought battles against the forces of doubt and despair. In quiet moments as I reflected on my journey, I recalled the many times I had questioned whether I was enough, whether I had sacrificed too much in the name of love. I remembered the sleepless nights and the endless replays of that fateful dinner when she had demanded that I quit my job. But now, each of those memories had transformed into a stepping stone on the path to self-discovery. They were not marks of failure, but rather symbols of the courage it took to stand firm in my convictions and pursue a future that was undeniably mine. I had turned her ultimatum into a catalyst for my own empowerment, and every success I achieved was a silent declaration that I was in control of my destiny. As the weeks merged into months, the cumulative effect of these efforts began to manifest in every facet of my life. I saw tangible growth in my business projects and received accolades that echoed my inner transformation. My financial stability was strengthening as my investments grew, and every day I felt a little more secure, a little more confident in my ability to shape my own future. The professional recognition I garnered, promotions, awards, and the respect of my peers, served as a constant reminder that I had made the right choice. I had chosen a path of resilience and self-respect, and now I was reaping the rewards. But beyond the professional triumphs, the most profound change was the emergence of a new, unassailable sense of self. I began to embrace my individuality with a fervor that surprised even me. I understood that the person I was now was built from the scars of betrayal and the hard-won lessons of perseverance. I no longer felt the need to conform to anyone's expectations. My worth was mine alone, defined by my actions, my choices, and the relentless drive to be true to myself. In every conversation, every interaction, I carried a quiet confidence that radiated from within. A confidence born from knowing that I had overcome the darkest chapters of my life and emerged stronger on the other side. In this newfound clarity, I also reevaluated what I truly wanted from life. I began to set new, ambitious goals for my future. A future that included furthering my education, expanding my professional network, and exploring creative ventures that ignited my passion. I envisioned a life where I could travel, where I could invest in experiences that enriched my soul, and where I could build lasting relationships with people who valued me for who I truly was. Every plan I made, every dream I nurtured, was a quiet rebellion against the past. A firm, unyielding stand that I would never again allow someone else's narrow expectations to dictate the course of my life. One evening, after a particularly long day filled with strategic meetings and reflective solitude, I attended a small gathering of colleagues and old friends at a cozy local cafe. As we shared stories of our challenges and triumphs, I found that my journey resonated deeply with those around me. I spoke candidly about the moment I received that ultimatum, the heartbreak, the shock, and the fierce determination that followed. In those intimate conversations, I saw the spark of understanding in their eyes, as if my story had struck a chord with their own experiences of overcoming adversity. Their support and empathy were a powerful affirmation that my decision to hold fast to my own dreams was not just right, it was essential. In that warm, softly lit room, I realized that the most significant victories are those that come from within. A quiet, resolute determination to forge your own path, no matter how steep or uncertain it may be. As the conversation drifted into the night, I felt a deep, abiding sense of hope that I had not felt in years. The journey from betrayal to empowerment had been long and arduous, marked by moments of despair and triumph alike. I had learned that every setback was a lesson, every tear a testament to the strength required to rise again. In that moment of shared understanding and unspoken encouragement, I knew that my future was bright, defined not by the shallow judgments of the past but by the promise of a life built on my own terms. By the time the evening ended, I walked home with a renewed sense of purpose, a determination that every challenge I faced was a stepping stone toward a future of boundless possibility. I had redefined my identity, reclaimed my worth, and established a foundation on which to build a life that was unequivocally mine. The scars of betrayal, though they remained, were now emblems of my resilience. A reminder that even when the deepest wounds threaten to break you, the human spirit can rise, rebuild, and transform pain into power.